Good evening and welcome everyone to the City of River Falls Municipal Utility Advisory Board meeting for Monday, July 18th, 2022. Lene, could we please have a roll call?
Carol? Carol?
Here.
Lick?
Present.
Spafford?
Here.
Toom?
Here.
Wells Mangold?
Here. All right, next, moving on, looking for an approval of the minutes from the UAB meeting on June 20th. Motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I don't think there was. We'll roll with that. All right, so this is a time for public comment. Do we have anybody? You sure, Wayne? No. It's all yours. Okay. Moving on to the consent agenda and acknowledgement of the meeting from meeting minutes from West Central Wisconsin Biosolids Facility Commission, June 16th, 2022 and June 30th, 2022. Motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I noticed in the June 30th minutes that the phase 0.05 of their construction project, which I believe we're still part of,
Yep.
is the budget is basically over doubled. Just curious what just all inflation, or is there?
Well, some of it's, you must have been a fly on the wall in that meeting, because that was one of the exact concerns, and it almost didn't pass because one of the board members was irritated that it almost doubled. So a lot of it was underestimating on the engineering costs. And some of it's inflation, and then some of it's project expansion. So doing a little bit more than they originally had planned on doing. I guess the good news for River Falls is we kind of know what we're in that for. We're going to be on the payment plan once they begin that project, which probably won't be in 22, probably mid-23. So we'll be on the hook for about 2.5 years, 23, 24, 25, yeah, about 2.5, 3 years. So still, we'll be under budget of what we're estimating we're going to owe West Central. But yeah, that project has grown. There's no doubt about it. You noticed that correctly.
Yeah. Well, it's just, I think, obviously, it's going to be something that we're all going to have to keep an eye on as what our contingent plans are, or our plans are coming forward, that who knows what. Hopefully, it's not going to be reflecting on what we're planning to do, these increases, but
Correct.
You never know.
I mean, there's even been discussion internally on some projects are we doing projects right now at the exact wrong time? Should we be waiting 8 months? I don't know. I mean, your guess is as good as mine, but yeah, your concern is heard. But I think most of that is increased scope of project.
Oh, okay.
Some
Well,
inflation.
that's, and I guess,
It's some additional
yeah.
additional storage tanks that they want to install now rather than later as part of it too.
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I just had a quick question, Kevin. I didn't see anything in the June 30th minutes about River Falls' decision.
Yeah, I sent them a letter indicating our intentions of not renewing. And I think it just because I've been talking about it with them for so long, and I presented them the letter and they sent the letter out to the board. It wasn't an agenda item. So there wasn't a lot of fanfare behind it. It was more of a formality. So they didn't really need to address it and then talk about it and wring their hands over it. All the hand wringing was done. And they got the letter, sent it out to their interior board, and they kind of went, yeah, we know this was coming. So I think that's why.
So size-wise, they're not thinking of reducing
No,
their...
they're not. Believe it or not, that was brought up, and they're not talking about scoping that I do believe Hudson and Richmond will probably get more involved in the planning processes of future projects, and they're going to be wanting to scale it. Is what I'm guessing, just from listening to them and some meetings and things I've been in.
Thanks.
Any other discussion on the minutes? All right. All those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Consent agenda is approved. All right, moving on to the reports. Kevin?
Yes, we have. We're very fortunate tonight to have Vali Gofrich here, Senior Vice President of Power Supply tonight. Mike Peters was going to speak to us, but he races motorcycles for a hobby and he crashed it, and he's going to be okay, but a few broken bones and whatnot. So he said I could do this presentation from the couch, and I said, no, you're not. So Vali is here, and are we going to get her on? Vali, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, just great. So
Super.
yeah, Vali is the go-to person for everything power supply, inside and out. So I think this will be very informative. Last month, we did talk a little bit about the press release that was sent out, discussing possible over-demand, oversupply. And then I said I'd bring somebody in from WPPI to discuss that. Well, here we are tonight. So, Vali, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Kevin, for the intro. As Kevin noted, my position in power supply, and I've been with WPPI about 16 years. And I'm an economist by training. And I have prepared a few slides today, but please jump in with comments and questions at any time. We'll start with a map of MISO, and then we'll talk about capacity in MISO generally, as well as for the planning year that started June 1. And we'll wrap up with a look at energy prices. This map shows the MISO footprint, and as you can see, it is a large market, which is advantageous because it facilitates diversity in both load and resources. WPPI participates in the MISO wholesale electricity market, and what that means is on a daily basis, WPPI operations buys all member electricity needs in MISO and sells all WPPI resource output into MISO. Just getting I have a few things going on. Oh, sorry about that. Few cursors going here. This map shows all of WPPI's major resources, and all but one is located in MISO in the North Central subregion. And the exception is Nelson. And Nelson is a gas plant located in northern Illinois, and it's in an area of Illinois that is in the wholesale market to the east of MISO in PJM. Bishop Hill 3, the wind farm, is also located in northern Illinois, not far from Nelson, but it's actually an area of Illinois that is in MISO. And WPPI's participation in PJM as well will come up on a later slide. So turning to the topic of capacity. Each April, MISO conducts a capacity auction for the upcoming planning year, which starts June 1. Resource owners sell their capacity into the auction, and utilities buy capacity in the auction to cover peak load plus planning resource margin or planning reserve margin. The planning reserve margin provides additional capacity should peak loads be higher than projected and to accommodate resource outages. WPPI participates in the auction both as a seller, selling the capacity of all the resources you saw on that map on the previous slide, and as a buyer. This past April, the MISO capacity auction was short capacity. The capacity offered in the auction fell about 1% short of the MISO North Central subregion's peak load plus planning reserve margin. Falling short certainly increases the risk that there will be insufficient electricity supply to meet electricity demand. However, it is not a foregone conclusion it will happen. The shortfall is only 1%. Resources can perform better than expected. Loads could be lower than expected. Also, as you saw, MISO is located in the middle of the country with the ability to import electricity from almost anywhere. WPPI seeks to be balanced, and what I mean when I say that is we seek to sell about as much capacity as we're buying in the MISO capacity auction. In this last auction, we were just a little long. If we look at projected availability of non-emergency resources above load this week, despite the expected hot weather, it appears MISO has sufficient resources to meet electricity demand even before calling on emergency resources. As of MISO puts out a projection for a rolling 7 days, might be 6, and I always look at it every Sunday, and the low point is Thursday with non-emergency resources above load of 8%. Any questions up to this point?
Yeah, I have one. So with the 1% shortage, how many times have they come up short? And in those instances, what was the result or what happened as a result of the shortage?
MISO has never had a capacity emergency in which they've had to ask load, an involuntary reduction of load. It has never happened in MISO. There are times when MISO does go into emergency, and I'm going to go into this on the next slide. Does that generally answer your question? So really, when MISO was talking about, I know in their press releases, they referred to rolling blackouts. That has never happened in MISO because they fell short of capacity. Does that answer that question, at least to start with?
I think so, but I mean, it shows that there was a 1% shortage. I mean, is that something that's common that happens every year? Does it fluctuate between like 0.5%, 1%, 3%? I'm
sorry, I misunderstood your question. Yeah. No, MISO has never been short in its capacity auction.
Okay.
To date. This caught everyone by surprise, including MISO. MISO does do a forward look, working with the state regulators that participate in MISO, and this was not expected based on that forward look. But again, as I mentioned, what the capacity that's being purchased is there to purchase peak load, also planning reserve margin. So it's above what we're expecting to address the unexpected, such as loads are higher than we were expecting, or resources are forced outage more than we were expecting. So that certainly can happen, but it's not a foregone conclusion because you're 1% short. You're going to have to ask load to curtail involuntarily.
Sure. Do they know where the miscalculation was?
That's a good question. They've definitely looked into that, and I think it's not totally clear. And participation in the auction is private, so the results we see are at an aggregate level. And so I know there's been some discussion. There's been a lot of retirements happening, and utilities are thinking about how resource adequate or what's the capacity position in MISO in terms of what they're doing with their own resources. So it's almost like multiple people made decisions to, begin to retire resources without realizing someone else's too, which left us short. In Wisconsin, I don't know if you saw the press releases where several Wisconsin utilities are delaying retirement of their resources.
Thanks.
Sure. Good question. So the vast majority of the time, MISO has sufficient non-emergency resources to meet electricity demand. However, there are times MISO needs to call on emergency resources and take additional actions. Prior to MISO implementing its emergency procedure, we may get a heads up in the form of a hot, cold, or severe weather alert. So for example, MISO today declared a hot weather alert for the MISO South subregion only, not for the North Central. That's effective Wednesday starting at noon until 10 p.m. When MISO declares a capacity advisory, market participants such as WPPI ensure MISO has the latest information regarding resource availability. And when MISO declares conservative operations, all generation resources and transmission that is currently out of service and can be returned to service is required to do so. And those are all steps taken before MISO declares an emergency. If system conditions evolve such that it is necessary for MISO to declare a capacity emergency, there are many steps in that procedure. The lowest level is an alert. This is a capacity emergency alert, not to be confused with the weather alert I noted earlier. The next level is warning, followed by event, which has 10 steps. I also include on the side additional info for levels that prompt WPPI or member action. I note here under warning that if MISO reaches a capacity emergency warning, if WPPI is not importing energy from the Nelson units in PJM, MISO will require us to do so. If an emergency escalates to event step 2B, MISO will instruct local balancing authorities, which in the case of River Falls is Excel, to issue a public appeal to voluntarily reduce electricity use. If we reach event step 2B, WPPI will call all members to ensure they're aware of the public appeal. Should a retail customer call you, and we will request that you operate any utilities-owned standby generation, request operation of any municipal and customer-owned standby generation, and shut down any non-essential municipal load. In other words, take voluntary actions that you can to reduce your load on the system. If an emergency escalates to event step 5, that's the final step in the procedure. MISO will instruct load balancing authorities to reduce electricity use, in which case River Falls will receive a telephone call from Excel with instructions about how much load to take off the system. An emergency can start at any level, and after MISO has declared the emergency, it may end at the level it has started, may not escalate any further, or it may escalate to the next level, or it could skip one or more levels. System conditions dictate how an emergency evolves. So, in summary, there are clear procedures for capacity emergency. WPPI drills at least quarterly on capacity emergency procedures, and we are prepared to implement at all times. So, with the shortfall in MISO's recent capacity auction, the potential for an emergency has gotten a lot of press. However, WPPI is prepared at all times for an emergency. The fact that we were 1% short in the capacity auction has not changed our level of preparedness. While a capacity emergency is more likely to happen when it's really hot or it's really cold, they can actually occur at any time. The system is very dynamic and things happen. But we have yet to get to event step 5 in MISO, aside from when there was a hurricane down south, which was really a transmission emergency. Any questions?
This question could come later, Kevin, for you, but what kind of steps does River Falls do when we get into these different event steps?
That it's in coordination with WPPI and their switching. So we don't have any interruptible customers on an interruptible rate here. So how many interruptible customers do we have on the WPPI load? 50?
Oh, no, it's not that many. I want to say it's closer to 20.
20, okay. But we don't
Right.
we don't have any in River Falls that they have 2 hours to shut down. We don't have that here.
Yeah, and River Falls preparedness really comes in at that event step 2B, should there be a public appeal, which the last time that happened was 16 years ago. It was actually the first year I was at WPPI. And that's really a matter of the Excel will take care of getting the public appeal information out there so that there's really one entity talking to make sure there's a clear line of communication. Then WPPI will call River Falls and make sure River Falls is aware of the public appeal, again, should a customer call or several customers, and also so that River Falls can do whatever it can to reduce its load on the system. And then, as I mentioned, in the case of the mandatory load reduction, Excel will call River Falls and tell them, we need you to take however many megawatts of load off the system, and that's when River Falls would act. So members actually, so much of this is happening behind the scenes, and MISO is managing, and the resources on the system are managing the situation. That those are really the two call-outs: event step 2B, the public appeal, to respond there, and then event step 5.
So Vali, this is Kevin. So maybe we can talk about this offline too, but I have reached out to our police chief about using the Everbridge text alert system that the county has for emergencies. And I didn't know if that's something that River Falls, I was kind of preparing a few text messages if we got to that point that would go out to our public in the River Falls area, but it sounds, what I just heard from you was that Excel will do that. And then my follow-up question to that would be, and again, I don't need an answer right now, we can talk about it tomorrow, is will there be confusion by our customers if they hear from Excel? I think there may be. So I thought maybe the alert coming from River Falls Municipal Utilities might be better understood. So just ponder that. We can talk about that offline. Sure.
And I think, and you know, given it hasn't happened except for 16 years ago, we don't really have experience. So I'm just guessing is that Excel is going to make it clear that about the messaging, make it clear in their messaging. And it's not necessarily that River Falls couldn't do its own messaging, but then you just have to keep up with what Excel's doing, right? So that would be the only thing is now Excel is getting information directly from MISO because MISO's telling them what to do. And so you just have to be on top of Excel's messages so that you can also get that, as the message gets updated, that you can update your own message. That would be the only concern I would have.
Just ponder it internally. I don't know the answer, so.
Sure.
But I'm prepared. No. I'm prepared to help, but I don't want to get in the way either. That's, yeah, so.
Right, exactly. And maybe, Kevin, that's where if a customer calls you, you can answer yes. All customers in River Falls territory are being asked to voluntarily conserve, take actions that you can to reduce your electricity use.
And are we 100% sure Xcel Energy is going to reach out to the customers in the way we would with a text message alert system or something like that?
No, Excel will do whatever their process is.
Yeah, I don't know. Just because we would do a text alert to every cell phone in River Falls. We have that capability. Again, just think about it. Because there are probably 30 things that will impact that decision that can't think of right now.
Sure. No. Good question.
Vali, for the thousands of people that I'm sure are watching online right now, just to make it clear, like when we're talking about these emergency steps, it's about our reserves and the capacity to tap into those reserves. We're not talking about the infrastructure failing at like what they have in Texas, right? Because that was a hot mess in and of itself because they didn't invest in their infrastructure. This is something different than that, correct?
Yeah, this is kind of your classic we think we need so many resources in order to meet peak load, but as it turns out, peak load is higher than we thought, or we actually just didn't get enough capacity, even our reserves aren't enough. And I guess the only way in infrastructure would be when there's cold weather, units don't work as well, but that's actually factored in. The Texas situation, was super unfortunate and had a lot to do with cold weather preparedness. For better or worse, because of the Wisconsin climate, we're very prepared for cold. So definitely a lot of issues in Texas. And that is not at all what we'd expect to happen in the MISO footprint in Wisconsin. If we did get to a point where, like on a hot summer day, what it's going to be is more generators were on outage than were planned. They got forced out perhaps. We don't have enough resources to serve the load. And there would be a controlled taking load off the system. And, okay, you're going to go for 2 hours. We're going to bring you back on. We're going to go with someone else for 2 hours, that sort of thing. Very controlled and as limited as possible, not to put people in dangerous situations. Less of an issue in the summer, of course, air conditioning. More of an issue in the winter, perhaps a bit less so in our climate because there's not, I'm familiar, it's not as much electric heat as there is in Texas. So that was a huge problem. So, no, we are anticipating not at all to have a situation like there was in Texas. We expect it to be a very controlled process.
Thanks.
Lee, I have a question for you. If I'm hearing this right, it sounds like we didn't plan properly, that somebody made a mistake, and it sounds like we're trying to rely on assets that may not be the most reliable, whether it's wind and solar. How does that factor into the fact if the wind doesn't blow, the sun doesn't shine, we don't produce electricity? Where do we make that up? How
Sure.
do we run a utility based upon, if the sun's shining and the wind's blowing?
Sure. Well, a couple things. I wouldn't say it was necessarily made a planning. I mean, there wasn't necessarily a planning mistake. Maybe people got a little aggressive. Because if you think about it, we really do just want to be balanced. We don't want to be long either because that's expensive. I mean, I guess we're totally fine when everybody else is long and we're balanced because then they're all spending the money. So it's a challenge because capacity is expensive. Now, the way they deal with renewables is they get much less capacity value. So basically, let's say for the sake of argument, WPI's Basel unit, it's about, can produce about 117 megawatts, WPI's share. And we get close to 117 megawatts of capacity for that. And we're able to sell that into the auction. But take Point Beach Solar. Point Beach Solar is about 100 megawatts. We were able to sell about 50 megawatts into the capacity auction. So what they do is the amount of capacity, it's called accredited capacity, that they can count on during times of risk is what you can sell into the capacity auction. Solar in the summertime, when there's an expectation the solar is going to be quite high when we're in an emergency or period of risk in the summertime, because it's likely going to be very hot, which means it's likely to be very sunny. But at the same time, we're only able to get 50% accreditation right now, 50% of that 100 megawatts. Wind is even less. So we can have 100 megawatts of wind. You do not expect wind to be blowing, although this year it's interesting, it has been when it's been pretty hot, but typically that's not the case. And so a 100 megawatt wind farm might get 17 megawatts of capacity. So units are accredited capacity at the level at which we think they can deliver in periods of risk. Does that help answer that question?
Somewhat.
So basically, there's a lot more energy availability. So in other words, when Point Beach Solar, if it's sunny, Point Beach Solar will be producing 100 megawatts. We're only, from a capacity point of view, we only allowed it to sell 50, which means there's another 50 out there to compensate for that. I hope that helps a little bit. But yes, we cannot operate the system based on solar and wind alone. And resources such as coal and natural gas will get accreditation pretty close to their installed capacity. That is not true for solar or wind. They will get much less.
Thank you.
Lee, this is Mark again. Can you just generally speak about those 20 customers that I think, Kevin, you said voluntarily?
Yeah, so they're on a rate. It's called the interruptible rate. So they get a better electricity rate because they have the ability to have a 2-hour shutdown notice. And then when we had this, 3 years ago, Valee, or 3 or 4 years ago, I lose track of time, when the wind turbines were shut down in North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Iowa, we had to reach out to those customers to ask them to curtail power usage within 2 hours. And a lot of, I think Valee can probably speak more eloquently to it, but I know a few of them said, we're on what rate? Because it probably never happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they had to use the curtailable rate.
So they'd have like a generator or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know if they have what do they have? Do you have backup power, Valee, or not? I don't know.
We have a combination of both interruptible customers, which actually do not have backup generators. They are going to actually just reduce their load. They're going to stop producing whatever their product is. And that's event step 2A. So that is capacity we pay member customers for. And, it's not an ask, it's a requirement. If we call you, you must come off the system. So we have both generators, but we also have quite a few interruptible customers where they'll actually just send the shift home until we call them and say, you can start back up again. So they receive a payment for their capacity.
So I have a comment and a question on that. So one, the comment is, and if they don't make it in 2 hours, there's pretty stiff penalties.
That is correct. That is correct. Because this is, it's very, very important that WPPI and MISO can count on the capacity that we've said we can deliver.
Yep.
So yes, it's very important.
And then the question, Valee, is how many megawatts are those 20 customers? Do you know?
I will double check that number. I don't even want to give you a number off the top of my head, but I can get back to you with that number.
Okay. I bet it's 20 to 30, isn't it?
I think it's more than that.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you.
I'll make a note of that. And that's what's happening at event step 2A. The SOC implements WPI's emergency resources. Those resources are only available to MISO in an emergency. However, they must perform in the emergency. Any other questions on a MISO capacity emergency? Good discussion. So lastly, I'll touch briefly on MISO energy prices. Resources in MISO's footprint provide MISO their physical operating parameters as well as their operating costs. And MISO takes that information and selects the resources to operate to meet the electricity needs in its footprint at the lowest cost possible while respecting transmission limits. MISO does a very good job minimizing the cost to serve load. However, resource costs have been higher for primarily two reasons: higher natural gas prices, which makes natural gas units more expensive to operate, and coal units are higher cost. The coal units are higher cost not so much because the price of coal itself is higher, but because many coal units are having trouble getting coal delivered because the railways are so congested. As a result, many coal units have increased their operating costs, so MISO will operate them at a lower level and they'll burn less coal. However, when MISO does select them to operate, their costs are higher, and that's showing up in energy prices. And then lastly, during capacity emergency, MISO will access all available resources, including the most expensive. So we can expect when we're in a capacity emergency that prices will be among the highest we'd see. And that's all I have in terms of prepared slides. Are there any other questions? I hope I addressed the topics that were of interest to you.
Vali, this is Kevin again. I have two pricing questions. One,
Sure.
one it'd be good to hear from you on is, I repeated what your group said at the exec team meeting, it might have been last month, regarding the auction pricing that, just for context, usually what that energy goes for, and then what it went for this year. I think that was an interesting piece, and I think if you say it, see if I got it right. Was it the January or February auction pricing?
So are you talking about the MISO capacity auction?
Yes, that was usually, it's like 15 cents and went for $7, went for the cone.
Yes, cost of new entry, yes.
So talk about that first.
Well, and that actually is not, because that actually is not energy prices, that's actually capacity prices.
Okay, well.
Which is fine, it's a good clarification.
Really good, this is why I asked.
So when MISO had that capacity auction and they were short, if you are short, the price is going to be administratively set to be whatever it cost to enter the market. And that's essentially a peaking plant, the cost of new entry. Otherwise, the price of the capacity auction is set by the marginal resource that cleared the auction. But when you don't have a marginal resource that cleared the auction because we're short, then it's set at the price of the cost of new entry. Versus in the South, in the South, you can see that subregion, they were not short capacity. And I should check this too. I want to say capacity was 19 cents a kW month versus $7+ in the North Central.
That's what I repeated. I said typically it was 15 cents the previous year. This year was $7.
Yeah, and I can get that info too. Sorry, Kevin, I messed up there.
That's not even fair for me to throw that on you, but.
No, that's good. But I couldn't talk more about capacity prices. I went into energy prices. No.
But that is the gravity of the difference, though, in those types of prices. Okay, I'll just round it. Say 20 cents to $7. That was the differences.
Yeah, and the reason that's happening is because capacity, typically either you've got plenty, so the price is really low, or you don't have enough, so the price is really high. So that's why it was a surprise that we were short, but it wasn't a surprise that we were short, the price was really high. So that's to be expected. So it makes things bounce around a bit. But because WPPI goes into the auction balanced, we're not exposed when the price is too low, and we're not exposed when the price is too high, because we're basically buying as much as we're selling.
It does balance a little bit.
That's right.
Then maybe one more. This is probably easier, but just our budgeted price at WPPI, our budgeted purchase price per megawatt hour is roughly $65 a megawatt hour. And then the last couple of months, it's been just over $100 a megawatt hour on our purchase. I'm close on that, aren't I? Just to give context of energy costs.
Yes. We were just looking at June, and market energy prices
were 103?
More than double what we projected. More than double.
Yeah. So that's why I bring that up, just for, again, to give context to what's happening in the energy market. And then I want to say, too, so when people get their energy bill at home and they see their PCAC, their power cost adjustment charge, and they see $37 on there, that's because as a utility in Wisconsin, we're allowed to just pass those costs along, so they end up being eaten by the consumer. So when those market energy prices become that high, then they get passed directly along.
You answered my next question.
Yeah.
Glad I was patient.
PCAC, Power Cost Adjustment Charge. Sorry, Vili, but I'm just trying to give context at a local level of why we're seeing what we're seeing, and then what's WPPI doing to try to help us out with that.
Absolutely. No, that's great. And I was going to check and see what the answer your question from what the capacity auction prices were.
I think I can remember Todd Complin saying 15 cents to cone, which was 7.
Yeah, so sorry, I'm not finding it as quickly as I wanted.
It's because you're under pressure right now. That's we know how that goes.
I want to take up your time, and I can send those details. Any other questions or comments?
I might have one more. Maybe one of you are going to ask it. If so, I'll just get you off the hook on it. So we recognize now that the market might be a little upside down. I mean, not very much, but a little bit. What is MISO? What is WPPI? What are the energy producers? What are the politicians? What are we doing about it?
You mean in terms of the shortfall in the capacity market?
Yeah.
Or
what's FERC? What are they doing about it?
Resource adequacy is a state responsibility. So it's not a MISO responsibility. It's a state responsibility to ensure adequate resources. So
what's the PSC doing about it then?
Well, so for example, WPPI, the Wisconsin was not short capacity in the auction, but other states were. And in MISO, we're all benefiting from everybody's resources. And so just because Wisconsin's short doesn't mean that we're not going to feel the impacts if there's a capacity, if MISO has to go into emergency, because we will. So it's really the states talking to the other states to say, okay, what are you doing to ensure resource adequacy? It was really Indiana was quite challenged, not sure why. And actually, that's MISO's headquarters is in Indiana, which is interesting. And also realize this was a one-off, and we're going to see how everyone's adjusting. I noted that in Wisconsin, the utilities are delaying retirements to ensure they're resource adequate. And so it's a state obligation, and it'll be interesting to see this happen. This is the first time this has happened, where utilities in the states go back, take a look, and see what they may need to do differently. And WPPI has, and actually, Kevin, you probably saw in the EC packet, we're actually seeking to close our position for next planning year, so that WPPI will be resource adequate.
Yes, I saw that. Thanks.
A lot of transition right now, with units retiring and utilities bringing on renewables. And this, I think, was let's hit the pause button here. Let's make sure we're resource adequate. No utility wants to curtail electricity to their customers. So I think we'll get the ship righted here, Kevin.
I know one thing, Vili. I mean, with you at the helm there, with Mike and your team, I know we have the right people on it, so I'm confident with that.
Well, I appreciate that. And I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to everyone today. And I'm happy to provide any follow-up that you would like, just let Kevin know, and Kevin will pass it on to me.
Philly, thank you very much for taking the time tonight. That was very helpful. And if people have questions for us, we can always even send them to rewatch this. This would be a award-winning YouTube 30 minutes with Philly Gofrish. Thank you, Philly.
Have a good night.
Well, hopefully you guys found that helpful. I mean, I can feel the concern in the room, right? Personally, as utility director and involved in this, I can't believe there's not a governing agency whose eyebrows go raised on this, to be honest with you. So, I don't know. I mean, PSC is pretty concerned about a lot of things. FERC's concerned about a lot of things, but not this, I guess. Not that maybe they are, I don't know, but that's not what I heard. But we'll see, so.
I was curious, which of all the fuels is the easiest to get more of? Is it coal, natural gas? You know, if they have to. Did I understand? So so they have the auction, they have a certain amount of opportunity. But if they have to go above that, is that where the 15 cents?
Yes. So then they're saying, well, here's the demand this year. Let's go out to the market and let's do our auction. Yeah. And somebody went, oh my gosh, there's more demand than there is capacity available right here. So then, of course, prices is whoop.
Yeah.
Because typically in those markets, there's more supply than demand, and then you can't, sometimes it's almost free. You can't give it away. 15 cents versus $7.
And that's where the PCAC comes into play?
Well, that's but see, she was more clear that that's not energy. That is what you say, demand? Yeah. So it's not really the energy price, but it's the capacity pricing, which I think, though, is related to energy. The PCAC comes from the monthly price of energy per megawatt hour. And again, it's almost double of our budgeted amount. And that's the total market combined on a daily basis, buying and selling. The good news there is, like Vili said, though, we're also a seller into that market. And part of our hiccup at WPPI the last 6 weeks was we had 2 of our gas plants down. We had some cracks in some piping, and we got one of the one up in northern Minnesota. Boswell just was put back online, I think, a week ago. And then South Fond du Lac gas also, I think, is still offline today as they're repairing it. So it was really a bad storm, right? We had the energies, high prices. Said, oh, good, we could sell into the market. Well, then 2 of our gas plants went down. So that's why we couldn't make up that difference in prices. We had to go, we're buyers in today's market, which was extremely high. But one of those is Boswell's back on and South Fond du Lac is being worked on. Anything that you want me to do or things you heard today that concern you that I should follow up on? Or
So with Indiana's hiccup, that's going to be felt by everyone just because we're all under the same umbrella. Is that what I understood?
I think that's what she alluded to there at the end. When the question was, isn't there a consortium that oversees this and looks forward? And then the answer was, no, each state's responsible for their own, but you're in a 13-state consortium. So who's looking over who's overseeing MISO? And then their future capacity needs. When there's 20 plants being retired, isn't somebody saying, do we have enough energy? I'm assuming someone's talking about that, but I think it was one of the original questions maybe Kellen had is this a surprise? So.
Well, I think probably Indiana will have to pay for their shortage because, like she said, WPPI is basically balanced, or we actually sold more than we're asking to purchase, so we're probably making a little bit of money off of that. But so they're going to have to come up with a cost, the shortage of capacity cost, I would think. Now, the overall price, the energy, is based on what their fuel input is, and of course that's going way up. And so that's really doesn't have anything to do with the amount of capacity that's available. That's the cost of producing the kilowatt hour.
That's a good explanation.
Of electricity. So there's really nothing short of the worldwide commodity prices for energy that's going to solve that. So that's nobody's fault within MISO or WPPI.
That's a good explanation too. I guess there, the silver lining, if there's any, is WPPI is on top of it. They have a game plan. I will follow up with Vali though on notification. I'm not sure if I want Xcel Energy talking to our customers. I'm not going to lie to you. Kellen shaking his head no, and you had the exact same reaction I did. I'm like, I don't want that.
I think it would be more confusing than anything.
Yes, because people know us, they trust us, they understand who we are. Yeah,
But we can control the message as it goes out, like we talked about last month.
Right. I agree. It's good to see your kind of agreement on that, because that didn't feel right to me that Xcel would be doing the messaging. That didn't feel good at all. So I'm going to follow up with Vali on that. I hope we don't get there. And again, they have a plan. So, I mean, the curtailable customers are going to take a big dent out of it right away. You're going to ask for voluntary, turn your air conditioning down or up, whatever you want to call it. But so, I mean, it'd have to be a pretty dire situation, but I suppose. And that's why we're thinking about it, so it would be serious.
It probably is a game plan though. If I want to be stubborn, you call me and say turn your air conditioner off.
There's
for a couple
people that won't.
hours. And if nobody does, then it's just an automatic rolling. Is that what the rolling blackout
Probably,
brownout things?
yeah.
When those come.
Probably. I mean, it's not going to be everybody at once, right? It's going to be rolling. And then it's going to be roll back on too.
Yeah.
Some will be on quicker than others. And I would assume if you ask people to conserve on that situation, half will, half won't.
Mm-hmm.
But half's better than none. So hopefully you found that useful today.
That was very good.
When you talk to your neighbors or friends or whatever, you have a little more understanding of it. I can go back and rewatch this and even learn some more too. So I've heard it a bunch of times, but the more I hear it, the more I talk about it, the better I understand it, just like anything. So,
Okay.
And my most concerning piece is my preparation to use Everbridge that I heard she said don't do, which I'll find out about that. All right, that's all I have, Kellen. If no one else said anything else.
Kevin, moving on from one uplifting topic to another, finance report.
Yeah, the finance report's not bad though, so that's good news. Electric, first of all, you can see that our revenues year to date are way up, but also can see the expenses that are up. That's because we're paying for power. So, but overall, we're still way ahead of last year. Last year we were 132,000 in the black. This year we're 388,000. So we are selling more electrons in 2022 than we were in 2021, and electric's in really good shape here mid-year. And another hot month like this will be projected to go in the right direction. Water's getting better as we get into these hot months where people start watering. So we went from in the red to in the black, and that will jump way up as we get through July and August here, and we'll get back on par. And then wastewater, where I seem to always be in pretty good position there. We're almost 400,000 in the plus there, so that's really good. And then stormwater, again, we're sitting really good there too, and 23,000 in the plus. So financially looking good. I just wanted to talk about I'll let you go. So I'll save the rest. So that's my financial report. Any questions? So I do want to say on the financial report too. So Tracy Biederman, who was with us, I think for 12 years, I believe, 12 or 13. Kellen's organization just stole her away from the city of River Falls. So
I wasn't going to say anything.
No, we're happy for her. She's worked hard. She's been a great asset to our utility, and she'll be a great asset to the university as well. So the financial reports are going to be a little more brief the next few months until we can find a replacement and find somebody who understands FERC accounting, which is not easy to do. But, so I'll be giving those reports, and Josh Solinger and his team are doing all they can to keep us abreast. So I just wanted to mention that in the financial report. But no, congratulations to Tracy. Hats off to her.
Utility dashboards.
Yeah, I do have one thing I want to mention on page 16. Electric meters for AMI, we're down to just a little under 8% remaining. And I understand from Virgil and Brian that probably by September we'll have those all installed. So AMI Electric will be done. So it's a little ahead of schedule, and those guys have just done a great job. Also, that doesn't show up in here, but I do want to mention that for the water AMI, people can write comments on our utility web page, and 99 times out of 100, it's usually a pretty crusty comment about something bad or a complaint. We got a real positive comment from Tim Rixman and Joe. What a great job they did and how polite they were and professional they were with an AMI water meter change out. So I just want to mention that. That's always good to hear. When you get one of those come in on the email and you go, hey, there's a good one. So, but those guys are good. They're pros.
And it's extremely fast. I was amazed at how quickly they got
Yeah.
that turned around. They hit my neighborhood in the last.
Oh, well, good. Good. So that's really all I think I needed to hit on the dashboards.
And the utility report.
Let me see if I dog-eared anything in here. Yeah, one. No, we had 3 outages last month and affecting about 90 customers. One was a cable failure, and I think 2 others were squirrels. Yeah, so we had a cable failure kind of over by Mark's house, actually. That was
Twice this summer now.
Twice now. And yeah, we did. The hardest part about the underground cable failures is locating them. And once we did them, got that one done in about 3 hours, and we phased people back in as we sectionalized it and narrowed it down. So we had a squirrel outage this morning.
Did they locate the squirrels?
Typically, Wayne found one this morning in the long grass right below a pole. Believe it or not, so that's what you do. So you have an outage, and you can't figure out why. You're looking at the overhead, looking for cutouts. You go to the base of every pole and look around. And Wayne was kicking around in the grass this morning, and by gosh, there he was. So it's kind of a relief when you find that, because then you know the problem, and you just got to switch it back in. So
I did have a question on the electrical department. We got Wayne in the audience.
yes,
I'm just dying to know, what does, we did some woodpecker repairs on RF16 and RF12. And other than woodpecker pecking on a pole, I'm curious.
want me to explain it, or do you want to explain it? So they have this special, it's like a foam, looks like foamy peanut butter. They stick into the holes, and they go around the pole with like a saran wrap type material to hold it in. And we had done that in the past. And we had some people saying, how come there's saran wrap with peanut butter under the poles? But they're actually filling woodpecker holes. Is that a pretty good description? That's what you do. It's not too sophisticated. But the polymer you put in there is supposed to last and hold. So,
Okay.
and you wrap it with saran wrap product, and it holds it in there.
That's to retain it while it's setting up then.
Yeah.
I expect.
Yes.
Yeah, like a mold, if you will.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that's something that you look for during an inspection, or how do you find that kind of stuff?
Correct.
Yes.
During our annual inspections at the minimum, or if they're driving around and see new ones.
Oh. No, unfortunately, I'm going to be looking for this.
Look for those.
I'm going to be out looking
Yeah.
for saran.
I did a video on that about 5 years ago. Because we did one right behind Family Fresh. It was right along the trail. We were literally getting calls on this. I went back there and I did a short video about what that was and what the purpose was. Maybe I'll find that and send it to you.
Didn't get as many hits though as your don't flush diaper wipes
no,
and everything
no,
else. That was a classic.
that one is still out there.
Yeah.
Floating around.
Oh, boy.
That was a golden oldie. I was looking through this and I didn't see anything mentioned about a check being paid or anything for the dam, or how are we doing on that?
We have gotten in, we had invoiced KCC $70,000, and I think we've gotten, Lene, help me with it, 20,000 roughly in from them. So
Great.
yes, so they're inching,
Chipping away.
chipping away.
So on that same note, you had an opportunity to talk with the DNR. We mentioned this at the last meeting.
Yes, so actually, Scott and I and Amy Peterson met with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and the DNR last week. And the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers does have $10 million that they want to bring into River Falls to help remove the dams. So Scott, I'll just say right now, is very interested in that. So when we can use the $1 million from the DNR said, to put towards our cost share for dam removal. So we're going to be looking for this discussion in a serious way, probably by September. It will come to you as in Army Corps will probably do a presentation, tell you what they're thinking about. So I will just say this though, I doubt that lower dam is going to come out in the next year. If the Army Corps gets involved, there's going to be an 18-month to 2-year study before they even get started, and it's going to be, the dams will come out, but it'll probably be a 5 to 10 year type deal, I would guess. So just kind of, that's a teaser for where the city administration is thinking about going with this. I think Scott feels like the 10 million plus the city's $3.5 million match, which $1 million would be already paid for by the DNR, maybe get another $1 million for the upper dam from the DNR, would get us in a position where we could get both dams out, take care of all the stormwater outfalls that go into the river, start thinking about the alleyway and restoring some of that. So I think he's thinking about a bigger, like I said, 5 to 10 year all-encompassing type project that we would never be able to afford as a city if we did it alone. So the 10 million might get us there. So I'm just going to tell you that's what Scott's excited about.
So my quick take on that was that I'm not excited about that, because when the city council comes to the public and says, this is what we're promising you, and then they come in the next year or two and they say, oh, by the way, we found a bunch of money that's coming out of your pocket instead of these private and public entities that we've all been talking about, just doesn't set right. Plus, listening to what we listened to today, what a better resource than our own hydro 24/7 electricity. And it's only going to get worse because everything is being pushed towards electric cars. We're going to take your gas car away from you. We're going to make you drive an electric car. So anyway.
I didn't read it, but I did hear William Hanson had a letter to the editor suggesting that very thing today. I didn't read it. I don't know what paper it was in. So Pierce County or something. I don't know. I don't know what. Oh, it was? I didn't see it, but I was informed I was in there. Referring to the exact same thing you just said, Mark. No, the way I describe this juncture is, this is like turning the Titanic, right? We had everybody going one way, and now we're going to be going potentially a different way, which is not close to the way we were going. So, but I do know the mayor has also said if the money shows up, that we would consider things earlier. But so I'm just giving you the information at this point without trying to ruffle too many feathers. But Mark, I do appreciate your comments. That's all I have on that, Kellen.
Kevin, what's the current energy output of the operational dam right now, of the generator?
I haven't. It's enough. Like today I was looking at it because I have the dashboard up right on my desk. So I watched that thing all day. It's close to 200 kW, Wayne? 180?
At its peak, yes, but today is about 125.
125 today? Enough for about, I think it's set up there like 130 houses today. And the solar was similar at like 1 o'clock when I was looking at that. Solar might got a little higher because it was sunny today and it was hot. So,
That's 125 kilowatts.
KW. Rated for, you can spin, I've seen it spin at 200.
250 is rated capacity.
River's down though too, so.
Thank you.
Just some information that we learned prior to you guys being on the panel was the efficiency of the current hydro in the upper dam is in the 50s, 60s,
Yeah.
somewhere in there. And that could easily be doubled with a new hydro generator for about,
Raise the dam 3 feet and a new generator.
right.
And this potential influx of money, can that be used to like clean up or beautify or repurpose the river where it is now, the lakes? Or is that all earmarked exclusively for removal?
I think that's the plan. And when Scott thinks about the legacy project, I think he's thinking about fixing the outfalls, fixing the river walk, making that all nice. That's what he's envisioning. The opportunity to do that. But yes, he's thinking about that, about not just dam removal, but restoration. And, right. So.
Anything else? I can't tell if that was announcements or not. Do you have any announcements?
No, I mean, it was a good conversation just 'cause, it was recent. I don't have, oh, so August 18th, again, too, hopefully you've signed up to volunteer. Kellen, you gonna be around or not?
Yeah, I think I put my name down for the corner.
All right, very good. Hopefully it's not as hot as today. That's it. Oh yeah, Jenna Wills, we have a new WPPI rep, Jenna Wills. Willie, she's here, started last week, so she'll be at River Falls a day and a half a week. Help us out with large customer contacts, energy bills, stuff like that. So, all right, she's good.
So I remember, because it was my anniversary, that we hit the peak,
Last
31.3 megawatts. Did we get that close to that today?
we were
or
2
not?
megawatts short today.
2.
I was watching though, I thought that'd be ironic that we'd hit the peak again on another UAB day. But tomorrow the temperature's supposed to be similar, but I'm gonna guess we're gonna be close tomorrow. Because all the thermal heating that happened today and it's not gonna cool down much tonight, it's gonna take more energy tomorrow to keep things as cool as today, so. So maybe we won't hit quite 31.3, but I bet we're over 30 tomorrow, so we'll see. And if it went one more day, for sure.
Okay. All right. Looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.